The rain hammered down on the dark highway like bullets against steel. Officer Marcus Reed sat in his patrol car, watching the headlights blur past his windshield. It had been a long shift, the kind that made a man question why he wore the badge in the first place. Then he saw her, a silver sedan pulled over on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly through the downpour. Marcus flicked on his lights and approached the vehicle. Inside sat a young woman, maybe 25, with frightened eyes and trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, and she explained through the cracked window that her car had overheated. She needed help. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, something dark stirring in his chest. The power he held over the situation, the isolation of this empty stretch of road, it awakened something corrupt within him. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered, his voice colder than necessary. Sarah complied, rain immediately soaking through her thin jacket. Marcus moved closer, too close, invading her space with deliberate intimidation. He asked for her license and registration, then made her wait in the rain while he pretended to check her information. His mind raced with thoughts he knew were wrong, plans forming that crossed every line he'd sworn to protect. What Marcus didn't notice was the black Audi parked in the shadows 50 yards back. Inside sat a man who had pulled over to take a call. His name was irrelevant to most, but those who knew him understood he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Jason Statham had stopped to handle business, but now he was watching something that made his jaw tighten. He'd seen men like Marcus before, predators who hid behind authority. Jason ended his call and stepped out into the rain. His instincts, honed through years of experience that most people couldn't imagine, told him exactly what was about to happen. And he wouldn't let it. Marcus circled Sarah like a shark sensing blood in the water. He fabricated violations, his voice dripping with false authority as he mentioned unpaid tickets that didn't exist and suspicious behavior she hadn't exhibited. Sarah's voice cracked as she protested her innocence, but Marcus only smiled. He leaned against her car, blocking her path back to the driver's seat, and suggested there might be ways to make the situation disappear without paperwork or trouble. The implication hung in the air like poison. Sarah's stomach turned as understanding dawned. She took a step back, but Marcus grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in with bruising force. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," he hissed, all pretense of professionalism evaporating. His other hand moved toward his belt, not for his weapon but for something far more sinister, his handcuffs, tools meant for justice now perverted for control. That's when the voice cut through the rain like a blade. "Let her go." Marcus spun around, his hand instinctively moving to his service weapon. Standing 10 feet away was a man whose presence commanded immediate attention. Jason Statham stood with a kind of stillness that promised explosive violence if necessary. Water ran down his face, but his eyes were sharp, calculating, taking in every detail of the scene before him. "This is police business," Marcus barked, trying to reassert authority. "Move along before I arrest you for interference." Jason didn't move. "That woman hasn't done anything wrong. We both know what you were about to do. So here's what's going to happen instead. You're going to get in your car and drive away. Right now." Marcus laughed, a sound devoid of humor. He was bigger than this stranger, armed with both a gun and the law. In his twisted mind, he held all the power here. He advanced on Jason, one hand still on his weapon. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life, friend. On the ground. Now, or I'll put you there myself." Jason didn't budge. Years of reading opponents had taught him to recognize false bravado versus real threats. Marcus was dangerous, certainly, but he was also sloppy, overconfident, drunk on perceived power. "Last chance," Jason said quietly. "Walk away while you still can." Marcus drew his weapon, pointing it directly at Jason's chest. Sarah screamed, covering her mouth in horror. The situation had exploded from harassment to potential murder in seconds. "On your knees, hand behind your head." Marcus shouted, his finger resting too comfortably on the trigger. For most people, staring down the barrel of a gun meant compliance or death. Jason wasn't most people. He'd been in situations like this before, in places where badges meant nothing and survival depended on reading the microseconds between thought and action. He saw Marcus's pupils dilate, saw the slight tension in his shoulders that meant he was actually considering pulling the trigger. Jason moved. It happened faster than Marcus could process. One moment Jason was standing still, the next he'd closed the distance with inhuman speed. His hand shot out, deflecting the gun's barrel away from his body just as Marcus's finger twitched on the trigger. The weapon discharged with a deafening crack, the bullet disappearing harmlessly into the night. Before Marcus could recover, Jason delivered a precise strike to his wrist. The gun clattered to the wet pavement. Marcus swung wildly with his free hand, but Jason was already inside his guard. A sharp elbow to the solar plexus doubled the corrupt cop over, followed by a knee that connected with his face. Marcus stumbled backward, blood streaming from his broken nose, shock and pain replacing his earlier confidence. He'd expected submission. He'd gotten a fight he couldn't win. Jason kicked the gun away, sending it skittering beneath Sarah's car. "You don't get to hurt people just because you carry a badge," he said, his voice cold as winter steel. Marcus tried to reach for his radio, but Jason caught his arm and twisted, driving him face first into the wet hood of the patrol car. Marcus struggled, but Jason's grip was iron. Years of training and real combat experience made this almost effortless. He secured Marcus's own handcuffs around his wrists, the irony not lost on any of them. The rain continued its relentless assault as Jason retrieved the service weapon from beneath the car, ejecting the magazine with practiced efficiency before setting both pieces on the hood. "Sarah, right!" Jason called out, his voice gentler now. The woman nodded, still shaking from adrenaline and fear. "Check his patrol car. There should be a dashboard camera. Make sure it's recording." She hesitated, then moved quickly to the vehicle. Through the window, she could see the small red light confirming the camera was active. It had captured everything: Marcus's harassment, his threats, the assault, and his attempt to shoot an unarmed civilian. The evidence was damning and irrefutable. Marcus writhed against the hood, rain mixing with the blood from his nose. "You're done," he spat at Jason. "You assaulted a police officer. That's 10 years minimum. I'll make sure you rot in prison." Jason leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper only Marcus could hear. "That camera caught you threatening an innocent woman, attempting to extort her, and trying to kill me. Your career is finished. Your life as you know it is over. The only question now is how many other women you've done this to before." The words hit Marcus harder than any physical blow. His mind raced through past encounters, other lonely highways, other vulnerable women who hadn't had someone to intervene. Some had submitted to his demands out of fear. Others he'd let go only after terrifying them into silence. He'd thought himself untouchable, protected by his badge and the brotherhood that looked after their own. Now that illusion shattered around him like glass. Sarah returned from the patrol car, her phone out. "I called 911. Real police are coming. I told them everything." Her voice was stronger now, the initial shock transforming into something resembling justice. She looked at Jason with gratitude and awe. "Thank you. If you hadn't been here, he would have—" She couldn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. Multiple units were responding, likely confused by reports of an officer down and shots fired. Jason stepped back from Marcus, keeping himself between the corrupt cop and Sarah. He knew the next few minutes would be critical. Despite the evidence, some officers might react first and ask questions later when they saw one of their own in handcuffs. 3 patrol cars arrived simultaneously, officers emerging with weapons drawn. "Hands where we can see them," they shouted. Jason complied immediately, raising his hand slowly while explaining in a calm, clear voice what had transpired. Sarah corroborated every detail, her voice steady despite her tears. The senior officer on scene, a sergeant named Williams, approached Marcus first. "Reed, what the hell happened here?" Marcus tried to spin a story, claiming Jason had attacked him without provocation, that Sarah was his accomplice. But Williams wasn't buying it. He'd worked with Marcus before and had always felt something was off about the younger officer. He ordered one of his subordinates to review the dashboard camera footage immediately. 5 minutes later, the truth was undeniable. The footage showed everything in stark detail: Marcus's harassment, his physical assault on Sarah, his attempt to extort her, and his decision to draw his weapon on an unarmed man who had intervened to protect her. It also showed Jason's restraint, using only the force necessary to neutralize the threat without seriously injuring Marcus despite having every justification to do more. Williams' face darkened as he watched. He'd been a cop for 23 years, and this was the kind of thing that made his blood boil. Officers like Marcus destroyed the public's trust and tarnished every good cop trying to do the job right. He personally removed Marcus from the hood of the car, reading him his rights with barely contained fury. As Marcus was loaded into the back of a patrol car, Sarah finally broke down, the weight of what almost happened crashing over her. Jason stood beside her, his presence reassuring, as Williams took their detailed statements. The sergeant promised them both that Marcus would face the full consequences of his actions: attempted sexual assault, assault with a deadly weapon, abuse of authority, and likely charges related to previous victims once internal affairs started digging. Before the officers cleared the scene, Williams approached Jason and extended his hand. "What you did tonight took courage. Thank you for stepping in when it mattered." Jason shook his hand firmly. Anyone should have done the same. But they both knew that wasn't true. Most people would have driven past, unwilling to get involved, afraid of challenging authority. Jason had seen injustice and stopped it, consequences be damned. As the patrol cars departed with Marcus, Sarah's car was towed to safety, and arrangements were made to get her home. She turned to Jason one final time. "You saved my life tonight. I don't even know how to thank you." Jason gave her a small nod. "Just promise me something. If you ever see someone else in trouble, and you can help safely, don't look away. That's all the thanks I need." He walked back to his Audi, water still dripping from his jacket, and drove off into the night. Behind him, Sarah stood under the now-clearing sky, forever changed by the encounter. She'd faced evil and survived because one person refused to let injustice happen on his watch. Marcus Reed would eventually be convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison. His arrest led to investigations that uncovered 4 other women he'd victimized over his career. Each of them would finally get justice. And it all started because Jason Statham happened to be in the right place at the right time, with the courage to cross the line between bystander and hero.